Hi, this is Jennifer Torres, and this is a PowerPoint slide on my education journey and how reading different articles has helped me figure out the plans that I want to do when I become a professor myself. So, starting with my own school years, language was a huge barrier for me and my sister. We both grew up speaking predominantly Spanish since my parents came from Mexico and to this day don't know much English. I remember my sister, who is 2 years older, she had to be in an English as a second language courses, and her homework almost every day was to read books in English. And I, 2 years younger than her, would sit with her and at the same time learned English with her. So when I got to school, I was able to skip those ESL courses and go into the normal classes. I didn't struggle with labeling as much myself as she did. As I mentioned, she was in English as a second language courses and she had bilingual professors. And I was just, since I learned with her, alongside her, I was able to have regular teachers and I wasn't labeled as an ESL student. Regarding race, during my first elementary school years, I never really noticed much racial imbalance within my school. We were mainly made up of African American students and Hispanics, and it wasn't up until I really got to high school that I noticed an imbalance because my high school was predominantly white students. And as I mentioned in class, it was something that was known all around the town that was the quote white kids school. Regarding disability, I have never had a personal experience myself since I don't have any disabilities, but I have had experiences that I've witnessed throughout my school years that really made me passionate about the subject and made me want to make a change. A few years ago, I used to work at a daycare, and we dealt with a lot of kids ranging from up to 3 months to 8 years old. I remember there was this kid in particular who had severe autism, and he would get aggressive with the other children, and he was very hard to control. The other kids mainly just ran away from him, kind of avoided him, and my peers, the other educators, didn't really know how to handle him or calm him down. From the treatment that I witnessed with his mother, I was kind of unsure if she even knew what to do because she would just try and calm him more forcefully, which ended up having the opposite effect that she wanted. So what I learned from reading some articles and just watching videos and stuff like that, I learned that it would be a lot easier if you distracted him. And that's mainly what I focused on when I had to care for him. I would see him getting anxious or upset with another child, and I would show him one of his favorite toys or play with him more one-on-one and tell him in a calming manner why the things that he was doing weren't right, and he seemed to respond to that a lot better than the other responses that he got from my peers. In a classroom setting, I have witnessed my teachers getting upset or frustrated with special needs students. I remember a time in particular where a student was getting very aggressive towards the rest of us, and my teacher actually raised their voice at him and ended up calling the principal, and he got escorted from the classroom. That was in elementary school, and That was in elementary school, and since then in high school, they have always been separated. In my classes, I don't recall ever having a special needs or disabled student. They had their own classrooms and their own times to go to lunch, their own times to play, and all of that stuff. These experiences allowed me to want change in the school, particularly with different subjects, and knowing that students have their own favorite subjects, such as mine is math. I've always done very well in that, and it's something that has always come easy to me, but other things such as English and science have never been my strong suit. The approaches for change would be to focus more on the courses that the student likes, but at the same time expressing that other courses are just as important. For inclusivity, I remember having a lot of just one-on-one time during my classrooms, and I enjoy more of a group setting because I think each individual brings in more information and knowledge to the group that the others could benefit from. And this has motivated me in creating lesson plans and stuff that allow the students to work together. While I was reading this article, I really wanted to know how you can move from the normal, quote, normal classes and the disabled student classes and to kind of merge them into one. So he mentioned that a lot of people think that teaching students with disabilities is it's often met with, wow, I can never do what you do, or you're so brave to want that job and want to work with those types of children. They conceptualize difference as deficit, meaning that they view someone with like a learning impairment or something like that, and kind of as if it was a math equation, they subtract from that person's like value, and they just keep subtracting instead of trying to actually figure out how to help that student become better. Although there has been overall change in responses to disabilities from the past, them being institutionalized for not so severe disabilities to now them actually attending school and there being disabilities studies, scholars, and all of this research and articles that try and help them succeed in school. Impairment refers to variations that exist in human behavior, appearance, functioning, sensory acuity, and cognitive processing, in contrast to a disability which is a product of social, political, and economic and cultural practices. He mentioned that most first-time professors focus on getting it right versus it actually being right. They focus on their lesson plans going as well as they planned, but don't really take the time to ask themselves if that lesson plan is reaching each student as the way that it was meant to be. And self-reflection that leads to change, which means acknowledging that I am having a hard time with the student. How can I make it easier on myself? And reflecting on you believing that you're not prepared to deal with this type of student, but making the effort to learn how.
You won't reach every child in the same way, first and foremost. You will touch them, and you will, leave an impression on them. But every child won't have the same experience with you as an educator. And yes, there are students who I have had over the years that were a challenge for me. And although I know that whenever I have a student in my class that's a challenge, I know that I'm going to have to do something different. I'm not going to be able to do the same things that I've done with other children. I'll have to tailor make what I'm going to do with this child, not just for him, but for me to make it through the school year too. What am I going to do? What am I going to notice about this child that I can always go to make sure that he and I both can have a good, or she and I both can have a good day this day? And many times you will have those types of children who it's the day-to-day thing because of the things that they're experiencing at home. Learning challenges. When a child has a learning challenge, then they act out. It shows up in how they behave. Oh, I don't know how to do this, so now I'm going to slam my pencil, or I'm going to throw my pencil at Bobby because I don't understand this content, and no matter how much my teacher tries to dissect it or switch it up, I'm just not going to get this information at this time. So I'm frustrated, what comes out in frustration. What I've learned over the years, my biggest aha moment or knowledge that I will carry on with me for the rest of my life about children is that children ultimately want to be accepted and encouraged. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be criticized. They want to be encouraged. They want to be accepted like anyone. And once they feel that you accept them and that you're encouraging them and that you're lifting them up and that they feel comfortable and being who they truly are and expressing themselves. And I think that's probably what I've learned over the years.
Thank you for watching A Wise Way. Subscribe to
I personally really liked this video because it is the kind of educator that I would hope to be in the future and want to understand my students on a one-on-one perspective and learn myself how they learn the best. So my future plans as a professor or teacher, I would want to focus on how I can help my students succeed instead of making them fit into my lesson plans. I would want to acknowledge my own mistakes and work out how I can improve on them in reaching those more difficult students, as you would call them. I would want to strive for inclusiveness other than separation and take the time to learn how to teach special needs students and how to teach those around them how to handle them as well. I would want to take the time to know my students rather than seeing them for an hour or two and then forgetting about them at the end of the day. And I would not be afraid to ask for feedback because I know that would help me and my students in the long run learn the material and be successful in school. Thank you.